His name rallies those with like-minded views. An army so passionate about his cause, they show up outside the courthouse when he's inside.
Tommy speaks the truth.
About what?
About, I think you know what about. Islam, Sharia law.
Shake your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my only grievance with Tommy Robinson is that why will he not come and say hello like you and me have said hello? That's my only grievance.
Well, I think we both know that Tommy Robinson has been built up as a hate figure by the liberal media, who have libelled him as a racist when he clearly isn't. And they have turned people unthinkingly who don't look, who don't do any research, as you and I both should, and they have gone on to then see Tommy Robinson as like, you know, a Nazi, when he clearly is not. And that's the reason why he can't come down here, because if he did, he'd be attacked.
Okay, well, why does he not come across and say, excuse me, I don't like you, I don't like your religion, I think all Muslims are bad, or why does he not say it in that way?
Well, he's actually said exactly the opposite. He's never said that all Muslims are bad.
No, I'm saying...
He's never said all Muslims are bad. He said exactly the opposite.
Okay, yeah, he's got a problem with Islam, and he's got a problem with the verse of the Quran.
I have a problem with Islam.
Okay.
He's saying that the moment a girl begins to bleed, that she's ready to have sex. I have two young sisters. I know very well that just because they enter into puberty, it does not mean that they are ready for that kind of intimacy. And I am backed up by every psychological study of childhood development that demonstrates that the mental faculties of a child to know right from wrong develop from the age of about 13 onwards.
Children across Britain are being exploited for sex by organised gangs in growing numbers.
It is the most vicious, premeditated form of crime I've come across, short of homicide or terrorism.
This is a very serious situation. We need to understand it, and then we need to not only prevent it, but we need to stop it.
Last month, the Office of the Children's Commissioner said that up to 10,000 children could be at risk of exploitation by sex gangs.
This is a very hidden crime. If you do not go looking for this type of crime, you will not find it.
The victims of these crimes suffer abuse for months or even years as they're passed around groups of men.
They did things where they locked me in a flat and put me in a bedroom and just sent man after man in.
You're taken to a place where you're well known, you're shaking a load of people's hands, it looks good on you. And that girl thinks you're someone, you do that a few times, then she'll start feeling for you. You talk every night on the phone. As soon as you talk every night on the phone, just make the girls fall in love.
They fall in love?
Yeah, and once they fall in love with a guy, and they'll do anything for him.
But end of all, that guy don't really give a shit about her.
At what point does money get involved?
Money gets involved whenever it wants to, really. They can say, I've got this right nice girl, she looks like a model, whatever. I want so much for her, and I'll pass it her.
But how much money are we talking about here?
Depends what the girl looks like, how she is, her build, the size. One girl could have sex for £30, and then there's another one, she could go for £10.
Why girls so young? Like, why 13-year-old girls? Why not older girls?
It's because the younger girls, it's easy to take advantage, because when they're 18, 19, don't really fall for little things like that.
They listen, because they're vulnerable. And once you're sucked in, you can't get out. You can never get out.
Will people pay more for younger girls? The younger the girl, the more money there is.
Yeah, because it says she's a virgin, they get the pleasure of you breaking her virginity. They tie the hole for the guy, really, and the better the pleasure.
Okay, what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is why are these blokes doing it? Are they doing it because, you know, they're frustrated blokes trying to get a young girl to have sex with them because older girls won't? Or are they doing it because they're trying to make some money out of these girls? Or are they doing it for both reasons?
Most people do it for money, because it's not easy to find a job these days. Sometimes just the easiest option, like stealing, it's got more consequences to it.
Guys see it as every hole's a goal. Everyone sees it as that, everyone.
What do you think of those that have been involved?
They are sexual predators, exactly what the judges said. They are sexual predators, and this was all about sexual gratification against vulnerable young girls.
Times journalist Andrew Norfolk has been investigating cases like these for the last year.
As each year passed, these cases would crop up involving 2 or more men being convicted of child sex crimes. The one thing I couldn't help noticing every time one of these cases cropped up was that these were Asian names. Time and again you'll hear police forces saying ethnicity is utterly irrelevant to this type of offending. We treat every offence on its own merits. If wrongdoing is taking place, we will address it. And that's fine as well, except in any other type of crime, if a pattern was staring you in the face like this, then you'll say, we need to understand why this is happening. And it's that question that I don't think has really ever been addressed in this country.
How long has grooming been a problem here?
I'd say since I've been working in youth work for the last 7 or 8 years, I've definitely come across it. Over time it is unfortunately growing. More and more young lads are becoming involved in the grooming issues.
What are these guys like? How would you describe them?
These are young lads who are mentally inactive and socially inactive. They're involved in crime, drugs. Somebody who doesn't work with young people might see them and think they're normal lads, but really internally, mentally and socially, they are very disconnected from society. Taking advantage of a young girl, to them it's a laugh. It doesn't occur to them the damage and the absolute evil that they are causing to another person's life and the community around them.
Don't they realise that what they're doing is wrong?
In absolute truth, no, they don't. So they won't go shoplifting, they won't steal from a shop because they know that's against the law, but they're willing to take advantage of a young white girl.
Why do you think they're targeting white girls rather than Asian girls, Pakistani girls?
These communities know each other, families know each other. The young lads cannot target a young Asian girl without some repercussion on them. They will get dealt with, that's the truth of it.
Morally, ethically, religiously, in every way, in every sense as well as legally, this is a criminal act and it must not happen. But more importantly, even the parents, the community leaders and the religious leaders need to accept that this is a problem. Once you know, you accept that there's a problem, then you can deal with the problem in different ways. But if you don't accept it, if you're closing in and saying, this is an attack on our culture, this is an attack on our community, we're under attack again, nobody is going to deal with it.
So they will identify a child. That child will have a vulnerability. As they build up the grooming phase, it'll be then breaking them away from their support mechanisms. So it'll be breaking away from their siblings and parents, breaking away from their peer groups, so that they've got no support structure around them other than the trafficker. And that's when the cycle of abuse cranks up and that child is completely alone. And people say, why do the children keep going back? Well, why wouldn't they? Where else have they got to go now? They haven't got anywhere to go. All their support, everything comes from these controllers, from these traffickers. There is one specialist residential childcare home. It's a small home, it only has 4 beds.
Why don't we have more?
I don't think it's the crime is understood, and I don't think that the trauma and the controls that are exerted on the children are understood.
Sammy Woodhouse was 14 when she was first raped.
From that moment on, I was abused mentally, sexually and physically for several years. But he was 24, he was known to all services for being a really dangerous person. He weren't just involved in exploiting children, he was involved in just about every crime you can imagine.
Sammy was just one of an estimated 1,400 children who were raped and abused in Rotherham alone, according to a report into child sexual exploitation there between 1997 and 2013. The gang that abused her is now in jail. The report found that most of the victims were young white girls, while most of the perpetrators were of Pakistani heritage. The local authorities completely failed to tackle the problem.
A lot of the people going on these marches, I know some that are victims, that are families, just normal kind of working day people that are just so angry at what's happened. They feel they're not being listened to, they're being ignored, and that the system is corrupt, and they're looking to go on movements like this because they feel that's the only way that their voices can get heard.
In May of this year, he was arrested for attempting to cover the trial of a sexual grooming gang in the UK. For speaking out loud on the sidewalk, he was taken to prison, With barely any time to muster a defense, he was tried and sentenced to 13 months in jail. Now, after more than 2 months behind bars in solitary confinement, during which time he was attacked by journalists in the UK, almost nobody defended him. But tonight he has been released on bail after winning an appeal.
Everyone of authority and every media company and mainstream media lined up to completely do hatchet jobs about why I should be in prison and how I deserve to be in prison.
Bradford, Leeds, Aylesbury, Oxford, Bristol, Newcastle, and you're getting the same formula, that lover boy formula, providing people with gifts, providing them with drink and drugs, and then drugging them and then raping them on an industrial scale. Girls young as 11, 10-year-olds. Makes me sick to the core when I hear these things. But girls young as 10, 11, passed on to people, town to town, raped by 5 to 10 people a day. And you know what? The rape gangs went out and done it. But the government, the council, the police aided and abetted them. By remaining silent on this issue, they were actually on the side of the perpetrators. And still to this date, nobody really wants to tackle the core of the problem.
An investigation into one of the worst cases of child sex abuse in the UK is stalling due to a lack of qualified personnel. The abuse scandal centres around the sexual exploitation of over 1,400 children over the course of 3 decades in the British town of Rotherham. It was revealed that 80% of the suspected perpetrators were of Pakistani origin.
On the part of the authorities, in their cases, they were actually saying that these girls made a lifestyle choice. It's about the fact that the authorities didn't want to be branded racist.
Some scandals are so massive that they're simply hard to believe. But this one is true. As many as 1 million white English children may have been the victims of Muslim rape gangs, better known as grooming gangs, in towns up and down Great Britain. Policy analyst George Igler.
I mean, when you counter an issue that is just so unbelievable, just so outside your frame of reference and understanding, the immediate human reaction is just not want to believe it at all.
Perhaps even harder to believe is that while there have been prosecutions, British authorities have still not stopped this criminal activity. There's a particular problem involving Pakistani heritage men who target young, vulnerable white English girls. Not my words, but a member of Parliament, Jack Straw, who also said these Pakistani heritage men view white English girls as, quote, easy meat. This is when some shout racism, but here are the facts. Calculations based on convictions show that a British Muslim male is 170 times more likely to be part of a sex grooming gang than a non-Muslim. And there are no recorded instances of non-Muslims doing this to Muslim girls as part of a criminal enterprise. In one local jurisdiction, it was estimated that 6 out of 7 Muslim males either knew about or were part of a grooming gang.
What you do not have is any example of non-Muslim men targeting Muslim girls for this organized form of abuse. So the argument that this crime exists everywhere is not only false, but is being deliberately cultivated by the media.
Stephen Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson, former leader of the English Defence League, was just a young boy in the town of Luton when he learned a family member had been victimized by a grooming gang.
My cousin was raped and she was found naked running from the Muslim community, aged 13. The police wouldn't help. All the police would say is she's a drug addict. She was a drug addict because they got her hooked on drugs after grooming and raping her.
Some say grooming gangs originate from a particular region of Pakistan, but others point out that the Quran encourages Muslims to take enemy women as sex slaves, and that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old wife. ISIS defends sexual slavery as Islamic, saying enslaving the families of the infidels and taking their women as concubines is a firmly established aspect of the Sharia, or Islamic law. Stephen Lennon warned that there will be repercussions.
But there will be a lot of blood spilled in this country. and it'll be on the hands of our leaders. And there'll come a time when they'll realise what they've done. And the country's people will realise what they've done as well. They've sold us out, they've destroyed our nation, they've destroyed our culture.
So if we accept the views of our lead police officer for child protection, of Rotherham's MP, and of the recent Jay and Quilliam reports, we seem to be looking at millions of rapes of white and Sikh girls by Muslim men, only 222 of whom have been convicted since 2005. So, my lords, will the government ask our Muslim leaders whether the perpetrators can claim that their behaviour is sanctioned in the Quran, and to issue a fatwa against it? And second, my lords, will the government encourage a national debate about the various interpretations of Islam? Can we talk about Islam without being accused of hate crime?
You texting, emailing me, wanting me to feel with you. Baby, just face reality, move on. Sometimes it's hard to face reality.